In this tutorial, I'm going to show you how to use the Resize, setWidth, and setHeight properties or methods of the WWidget class that's part of the WD library. So let's go ahead and get started. What I have here is the WD documentation, and let's go ahead and do a search. I'm actually using Opera as my web browser. So what I want to find is Resize, and there's the Resize. And Resize essentially just resizes the widget, so you can specify a fixed size for the widget, setting the CSS width and height properties. In other words, we can pass in a number, or we can pass in a width length class to resize the widget. So what I have already done here is I have a project, has not been changed, but this is a default project in Komodo Edit, and it's called Resizing 1. And what I'm going to go ahead and do is create two boxes that are going to be resized onto the browser window. So let's go ahead and get rid of this label. First, I'm going to remove this right pane out of the way. Get rid of that. Change this to a witty text, and then I'm going to create two boxes. It's going to be called box 1. It's going to have a header of 3, or heading of 3. I'm going to add this to the application root. I'm going to add another box. And add this to the application root. I'm going to call this box 1, something we've been doing for quite a few videos. Call this box 2. So now we have two witty widgets onto our browser, or onto our application, I should say. And we're going to set a couple of properties. Going to call the decoration style object and set the background color for this first one to red, and this second one I'm going to call the decoration object, or decoration style object, and set the background color and I'm going to make this one green. Okay, now that we have that, I'm going to kind of separate these two out. Move this up a little bit. And box 1, I'm going to resize it to 640 by 480. And that's one way you could do it. You could just pass in the actual numbers. This is the width and this is the height. If we look at the, let's see if I can find it. If we look at the documentation, you pass in the width and you pass in the height. It can either be, you can just pass in the numbers, or you can actually use the width length class. In our case, I'm just going to pass in the numbers for this first example. And then for box 2, I'm going to do the same thing. Okay, so we have two widgets. If we go ahead and go in here and compile, and I've already ran CMake on this to run our make file, to give us our make files. I just closed the server. I had the server running. Okay, if we run the application, the server has been started. And what I'm going to do is add in a new tab. Go to localhost. And as you can see, we have two boxes, box 1 and box 2. Both of them are 640 by 480 pixels. So that's one way you could call Resize. Another way, or actually I'm not going to call resize again. What I'm going to do is I'm going to set the width. So there's another method to call the actual width. And I'm going to change the width using a witty length, and this is something we've been doing as well. It's going to be 480 pixels, and we call it the witty length and the actual unit. So if we go in here, let's see if I can find the documentation. And if I go and do set width, just find it anywhere on the page. Here is set width, and you can pass in a witty length, and you can also pass in just a number if you so desire. Let's see here. All right. And as you can see, we have 480 pixels, 480 for into our witty length constructor, and here is the actual length, or the type of length, which is going to be in pixels. You could also do emphasis, or you could do a percentage based on the page. And then for box 2, I'm going to do set height. I'm going to make the height 800 pixels. So this sets the width on box 1, this sets the height, and this overrides resize. So if we go in here and compile, and you can also close the server while that compiles. Okay, now that that's compiled, run the server. And let me see if I can bring this back up. Go back to our tab and do a resize. And notice how it resized our window. So now this one's a little bit longer. Box 2 is a little bit longer. And box 1 is a little bit shorter. So that's just a quick example of how to use the resize and the set width and set height. There's more than one way to do that. You can just use a number, which could be a double, it could be an integer, or you could use the witty length class and pass in your value of type double, and then pass in the enumeration of the unit. In our case, we just use the pixel. You could also use, again, emphasis, percentage, and there's some other values in the witty documentation. So I'll see you in the next video. Bye-bye.